Good morning, Andrew.
Good morning, sir.
How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. Honored to be here again.
Well, I'm happy to have you. Really looking forward to today, man. Toward the end, I think it was the last time we had you on the show, you alluded to this nihilistic, mostly young group of people doing sextortion and some other things that has kind of jumped to the forefront since we did the last show with you. So I want to get on that some today and some other things because I just finished a book, man. I should have told you about this in the green room, man. If anyone builds it, everyone dies. About the general artificial intelligence, man, and some spooky stuff.
Yeah, we can talk about AI certainly if you want to. I'm neck deep in it right now and at work, and with all the cyber stuff, it's definitely a force multiplier for bad actors and defenders like us. So
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting. It's a tool that definitely cuts both ways.
yeah,
Let me go ahead and read your bio, Andrew. Andrew Frisbie is a senior level cybersecurity professional in the financial services industry, currently responsible for defending about 2,400 employees and about 3,000 computer systems in banking, insurance, and retirement plan businesses, as well as sensitive customer and company data from cyber threats. He is responsible for cybersecurity operations, information security, third party risk management, and leads other groups focused on insider risk management and artificial intelligence. Andrew's professional career spans information technology, law enforcement, computer forensics, and cybersecurity. As a law enforcement professional with a technical background, Andrew investigated computer facilitated aspects of homicide, child exploitation, and fraud, and later became a testifying expert in the private security on matters related to corporate insider misconduct. Andrew holds a certified information system security professional CISSP credential and a master's degree in business administration specializing in cybersecurity risk management. Over several decades, Andrew has also spent time in mountain ranges across the globe, including places like the Yukon, Pacific Northwest, Rockies, Adirondacks, Russia, and East Africa. Andrew is grounded by his Christian faith and motivated daily by his amazing wife of 26 years and their three children. Man, you are a blessed man, my friend.
I am very.
So I didn't know about the mountaineering aspect of Andrew Frisbie.
Yeah, it was back in. I mean, I grew up in the Adirondacks. Rifle in hand at age 9, hunting with my father, and kind of cut my teeth there in the mountains. Adirondacks, for those of you that don't know, pretty harsh environment in the winter. Uh, this I think it's the largest state park in the country. Is like 6 million acres, forever wild acres, so it's a big area.
Whoa.
And then out in the when I moved out to the Northwest in my mid 20s, got into mountaineering there. Spent a lot of time in the North Cascades, some of the volcanoes, Mount Rainier. Led an expedition up Mount Logan, which is a few hundred feet shy of Denali, but it's much more remote. It's in the Yukon territory, and then just smattering of other trips around the world. Nothing technical, but high altitude anyway. So.
Wow, I had no idea. Now I'm even more impressed. Now you have to be destroyed.
It's I can tell you some funny stories about all that. One quick one: I wouldn't recommend mountaineering for married men. So we when I did the Yukon trip, I took a sat phone with me, and we had a really difficult day of climbing that day. Made our way through this area called the Knife Edge, or the Knife Edge on the east ridge of Mount Logan, and there were some really sketchy moments there. It was just me and another guy, and we'd finished about 15 hours of hard climbing, and I spun up the sat phone to call my wife, and this was early season, so we're in May, and she was so upset because she couldn't get the lawn tractor started back in Vermont at the time. So our worlds were so far apart at that point in time. I'm up there in the snow at 16 17,000 feet. She's trying to cut grass in Vermont, and I realized after that, I'm like, you know what, got to dial that back a little bit. So
No doubt.
yeah.
No doubt, my friend. That's crazy. That's awesome. Guile is on from the Philippines. Good morning, Guile. Will Rhodes is on. Says, morning, Rich. And Andrew from Missouri, coin number 2269. And if you want to find out if becoming a member of our self preservation community in all aspects of self defense, please click the links in today's show notes. Jason is on. Says, good morning, gentlemen. Mostly secure here in Northeast Kansas. Johnny King is on from Kentucky. Will Parker is on from Montana. Dan Brady says, what's up, guys? Good morning, Dan.
Dan?
Okay, man. So let's jump into it. I really kind of want to get right in with this I don't know what to call it, cult. You tell me.
Yeah. So last time we talked about this group called 764, which is, I don't have direct experience with it. I do have direct experience investigating child exploitation crimes. This is a group that is on the FBI's radar today. And I mentioned it because when we're talking about child safety and child predators, 764 is like the worst of the worst. So they're classified by the FBI as a nihilistic extremist group, which means they don't align with any ideology, as opposed to like a neo-Nazi group or something like that. And they're extremely dangerous because they target vulnerable children and basically socially engineer them to commit self-harm, cutting, suicide, also sextortion is big with them, and sextortion is unfortunately an all too common phenomenon that is perpetrated against not just vulnerable children but our own teenagers, and it can be devastating. I mean, it results unfortunately in suicides. And so after that podcast, Fox News had done a story on 764, interviewing one of somebody from the FBI, and that's when I reached out to you. It was some follow up, but yeah, really bad group. And you saw from the discussion we had last time. I mean, they've arrested folks in your backyard that are associated with this group, so they're out there.
Yeah, I tell you what, they need to be. I can think of a cleansing flame that needs to go through that whole network. Scott is on. Good morning from Mid Michigan. Coin number 22,489. My good friend Chris is on from Knoxville. Good morning, brother. Bruce is on from Michigan. Good morning, Bruce. Please like and hit that share button, man. We're just getting going. So that kind of opens us up to. So there's groups like that out there. By no means is 764 the only group that is doing those kind of things to children and vulnerable populations. Let's look at the threat. Who is at risk of any of this cyber exploitation, whether it be stealing your credit card number or anything? Who's at risk?
Yeah. Well, everybody's at risk. The question
everybody, right?
How much, right? And when you're talking about financial crimes and financial risk, I think that's far more common. Certainly, the elderly are I think at greater risk because a lot of times they just are losing the faculties to discern between what's real and what's not real in terms of a cyber threat. And they also are perceived to have more assets, right? So they're targeted. People in our age bracket are targeted for assets, and then children. Children are vulnerable because they are born and raised with technology now. They're on it all the time. They don't really put safety first unless they're taught to, and even then it's hard. If you have a teenager, they're not really interested in safety. But we as parents and adults can create vulnerabilities for our children, right? And as common as it is, going through a divorce creates a lot of distractions for the parents that can put their child in a vulnerable situation. And when that child is just looking for a connection and for somebody, to speak with, it kind of opens the door, right? And nowadays, we let the bad guy into our house. We provide a smartphone, which is essentially a computer with phone capability. And when we do that, the locks on the doors don't matter, right? That bad guy can be in Nigeria, he can be next door, but they're in your home at that point.
No, that's so true, man. And I don't know about the 16 folks watching us live. And good morning, Will. Will says, I have a solution to the severely and intentionally hurting or kidnapping children. Yes, so do I. and it involves a rusty butter knife. Donald Green is on. Good morning. He says, from the frozen People's Republic of Virginia. Tony is on. Edmund Scarborough is on. John Shriver is on from Yukon, Oklahoma. Yeah. The thing is, man, you got a great point. If there's 4 people in your house, there's 4 cameras walking around and 4 microphones walking around at all times. And then the idea that the Wi-Fi signal could be identifying where the locations of people in your house. There is a whole lot of, I think that we forget, and I know I really struggled with my own children to let them know the dangers. I mean, I would literally hear, Dad, you don't understand. I'm like,
Oh,
well, I think I do understand the threat. You don't, because like you said, Andrew, you're born with this technology. It's bolted to your hand at birth these days, sadly. My granddaughter, we're very purposeful. She's like a moth to a flame to this thing, Andrew.
Oh, yeah.
She's just like, she starts crawling toward it when she sees it. And we're like, no, you're not touching this for a long time.
Yeah. I mean, Gen X, we're really the last generation to have grown up in the analog world. And,
Thank God.
Yeah, I know it's sad to see in a way, because kids today have, technology's brought them a lot of benefits, but at the same time, they don't know what life is like without it. And it's very difficult to get them to separate. I mean, that every social media app out there is designed with algorithms to get users addicted to that app. I mean, it's that simple, right? Looking for the notification, and kids have a really hard time separating it from it. So we think that you got to be somewhere on the dark web to find a bad guy, but you really don't. They lurk in places like Roblox and all these other common apps, gaming apps, looking for that opportunity. And now you've got, you mentioned AI at the start of this, but now, the big concern is basically undressing people and using AI, right? Or creating manufactured child exploitation images using AI. And so, we hope that the developers can put guardrails in place, but that's not always the case. And
I just saw yesterday, Andrew, I don't know if you saw it, where Grok would no longer be undressing people. Did you see that?
I saw that based on some criticism towards them. But then you got Sam Altman over at ChatGPT opening the doors to another level of erotica via that platform, right?
Really?
So yeah, I mean, his comments are, that OpenAI isn't the world's morality police, which is true, but at the same time, you don't have to build it.
Right.
And so their stance is, freedom of choice and all this kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, age verification on these platforms is pretty easy to bypass, right? And so we talk about, when we talk about kids and vulnerabilities and all this kind of stuff, it isn't always the bad guy. You look at the pornography industry, for example, and how your kid is 2 clicks away from really graphic stuff.
Yeah.
Right. And what that does to them psychologically. Well, take it to the next level with an AI system that now develops a relationship with your child whose brain hasn't fully formed yet.
Can we talk about that? Man, that is so true, and it's free, unlimited access to any kind of pornography you want. I remember, I'd been married for 4 years. The first time I went to Europe and saw some really extreme pornography, whether I wanted to see it or not. It was on the streets of Paris, and not Paris, but anyway, Toulon, France. And I remember like, whoa, I didn't even know that kind of sick stuff was out there. Yeah. Well, your 10-year-old can see it now because he's got a freaking phone in his pocket. And then these are things that are wiring our kids' minds differently. And to your point about Gen X relative to like my son, who, as the viewers of the show will know, was a cybersecurity research scientist at Sandia National Laboratory, working for the Department of Energy, doing all kinds of cool stuff. And he's now designing his own video game. He started his own company and he's making video games. Yeah. I say all that to say last night we were talking, he was talking about the strategy with this video game. And I said, you know what, when I was a kid and Andrew was a kid, some of the folks watching, you took your quarter, which is probably the equivalent of $1 now, and you played, and there was no save button.
Right.
You had 3 chances and then you died and you went back to level 1. I said, you guys have save modes and this and that and pause mode. I said, we had none of that crap. But my saying all that is neuroplasticity of the brain, it's being wired a certain way. and we're creating reward systems, and this phone is exploiting reward systems. Like you said, I get a little vibrate in my pocket. I go, ooh, I got to see this because I know I just posted something saucy, and I bet somebody's going to have a comment about it.
Right.
What are your thoughts on all that, man? Am I way off base, or is that kind of what you're?
No, not at all. I mean, the science is pretty clear on the harmful aspects of this technology today. I mean, I don't want to discount the benefits that people get from it, but we're talking about risks here. So, the technology is designed to get people addicted to it, right? I mean, even I'm not really an avid social media person. I'm on LinkedIn, but on LinkedIn, you get that little red notification that says you got messages, and I find myself even that there's that red indicator. I got to check it, right? Because who's reaching out to me now? 9 times out of 10, some solicitation, whatever. But the algorithm is built to get me to check it quickly, right? And it's no different with Snapchat and TikTok and Facebook and all these other ones. Like they're designed to keep you attached, and when you're in your youth and your brain's not fully formed, you're developing all these habits. This is what you're learning and training your brain to respond to, right? And it is anybody who's a parent of a teenager today understands the difficulty of separating the child from the technology and teaching them, other vital skills. Picking up a book, for example, it's replacing so many things, and you're learning. The way kids are learning is it's quick, short bursts, right?
Yes.
TikTok videos, as opposed to sitting down and spending a couple hours reading, chapters in a book, right? Where you're processing that for a longer period of time. So there's a lot of ways that this technology is affecting kids, not just the child predator side, but all this other stuff. So
Yeah, that's exactly my point. You had to earn the information in our youth. My family had a Encyclopedia Britannica and a Funk and Wagnall in one bookcase in the kitchen where we did our homework, and that was early Google, right?
Yeah.
You might, I guess it's an analog form of Wikipedia, because you had to, as you're clawing through to get your information, it's like, oh, that's interesting. Where's that? Let me get the G out. Okay, we read that. And you earned what you learned.
Mm-hmm.
Nowadays, it's like, oh, what's the answer? It's just so freaking lazy. Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, man, back in the day, buddy, it took a lot of research to figure things out. You might have to go to the library, claw through periodicals.
Microfiche. Stuff, yeah.
What's that?
The microfiche. You remember that?
Yeah, absolutely. Spent a lot of time doing that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Chris has a question for you, Andrew. He says, what would be the best way for a complete beginner to learn the foundations of cybersecurity? There is so much information out there that it's hard to find where to start and what's actually good info.
It's a great question. And this is the challenge in my industry is it's information overload all the time. Honestly, this is exactly why I created the guide for your community, Rich. So it's I think you posted it under the last show, but there's probably 80 pages of information there that walks you through the basics on cybersecurity from a personal defense perspective, talks about the threats, and then gives you solutions for each one of them. So I would steer you there. It's an all-in-one place to sort of get up to speed on cyber self-defense.
So go to the AmericanWarriorShow.com and look at Andrew's last appearance on the show, and there should be a clickable, downloadable PDF. That's basically an ebook that Andrew has written for our community, because Andrew is an American Warrior Society member, as well as a really important guest on the show. Johnny King says attention and affirmation drive our ego sometimes. So that question, we're hardwired that way. And these devices know how to exploit it beautifully. And AI is just going to get better and better and better at it. But the problem, I think, with AI, and this is where I want to throw to you, something I picked up in that book, we don't necessarily know what's going on under the hood. When you look at an artificial intelligence and you try to make sense of some of the code, it doesn't make sense. That's what I'm being led to believe. So that scares me, because we don't know how it thinks. And we've created a weighted reward system that makes it do what it does, and it's craving those tokens and things of this nature, and it never sleeps. It's not like a human being, man. I can only take so much, and then I got to get away from the laptop and take a nap or go for a walk or something, go to the gym. Whereas this thing doesn't, man. It does not stop.
Yeah. Yeah. So I can give the audience kind of a brief overview on AI and what it is if you want.
Please.
So artificial intelligence is designed to mimic human intelligence, basically. And if you think of things that humans do, right, we have wisdom, we make decisions, we analyze, we
Andrew, can I throw a thing out that, because this
sure.
is what the book said, and I'll throw it to you, but it sounds very simple to understand. Learn, predict, steer.
Mhm.
It learns, and then it predicts an outcome, and then it steers itself or another organism to that outcome. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean that's a great way to think of it. But there's all kinds of different AI, and so I think one of the misconceptions is that AI is new, and artificial intelligence has been around for a very long time. I mean, literally dating back to the 1950s, if you want to go back that far. But what really put it on the world stage was what we call generative artificial intelligence, and this is the Chat GPTs of the world when it hit the world stage in 2023. And so basically, what generative means is you're creating new content, right? You're querying the AI chatbot to create something new. And so these tools like Claude, like Grok, Chat GPT, they're all trained on what we call a model, a large language model, or multiple models. And you can think of like Chat GPT as being trained on all of the public information ever known in humanity, plus some other stuff, right?
Mhm.
So that's a lot of information to process, even for an AI system. So when you ask it a question, if your question is very high level and very generic, it's got to sort through all of the world's information to give you an answer, and it's going to try to please you, right? You could get a response that is partially accurate, not accurate at all, very accurate. So what I think the average population really doesn't get with AI is you really have to work to get the value out of these systems. You really have to approach them with specificity and and zero in on what it is you want to ask the tool in order to get accurate information back out of it. But to your point of it being a black box, I mean, this is the problem, right? I mean, you don't know how the algorithms are built. You can read the system cards for Chat GPT, and they're very informative, but most people don't. They'll tell you like what the testing is like, and all the testing stats are in there. So they'll tell you, yeah, it's 80% accurate on this task, or it's
Mhm.
99% accurate on this task. But the problem is it's conversational, and so the average person kind of accepts its output as gospel. It's got to be right, and it isn't all the time.
No, this is exactly right. Uh, yeah, it is, the book I was referring to is written by two AI engineers, and it's called, I just finished it. If anyone builds it, everyone dies. And they're like, yeah, at the very end of the book, it's like, what is our prayer for this? That everybody laughs at us in the future, that we're mocked and ridiculed, and deservedly so, but we don't think we are gonna be. Um, it is a scary, scary thing because, like you said, people take it for the gospel, and sometimes it's not right at all. And if you just go, oh, well, it says this, well, good luck with that, because it's not always right. But the other way to think of this is that they're not programmed, they're grown. So, like a large language learning model, like you referenced, Andrew, is something that it's not a coder didn't sit down and code this. They just fed it information, and it grew and grew and grew. And you slap more GPUs to it, and it gets smarter and faster and smarter and faster. And it wants to give you the information that it has a bias toward, and that it thinks that you will entertain your bias, which, if anybody doesn't see a potential problem with that, wow, I don't
Yeah,
know what to tell you.
engineering the bias out of these systems is a tough task, and you have to accept the fact that it's in there. But I want to mention two. There's two future states of AI that, and you alluded to one of them, general artificial intelligence, and
Mhm.
the other one's singularity. And so we haven't reached either stage yet, but this is something for everybody to pay attention to. So the people you want to listen to are the ones leading the development of the major AI platforms. When they say we're 6 months from AGI or 10 years from singularity, you should listen to that, right? So AGI, artificial general intelligence, is the point in time where the AI systems kind of equal human intelligence. So today, even though they look really smart, they can't replace uniquely human qualities, right? They don't really have wisdom. They have perceived wisdom. They don't have empathy, compassion, really any of that. Singularity is the point where artificial intelligence surpasses human intelligence, and it's kind of self-programming at that point in time. Both of these stages will occur at some point. Nobody really knows when, and those will probably be stages that alter humanity in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
It's just we're gonna be up against machines at that point in time.
It's interesting. I'd never really considered what you just said, and then as the singularity is coming, I absolutely agree with that. General artificial intelligence is coming, and the difference, as I understand it, Andrew, is that artificial intelligence does specific tasks like a large language learning model. It takes in this information and it helps aggregate it and spits out answers. Right. Generalized artificial intelligence is everything, all at once. It can do physics and teach you how to speak Hungarian and everything in between. But I feel like when it comes to something like the singularity or general artificial intelligence, we're only going to know in looking back when it occurred. For example, like the Large Hadron Collider there at CERN in Europe, searching for the Higgs boson forever, right? Spinning protons for decades. And it was only looking at the data that they could go, oh, we actually discovered it a year and a half ago or whatever. So it's not like, oh, right now we know it happened.
Right.
I think you correct me if I'm wrong. I think we're only going to know, like, looking back a little bit, that it occurred on this date and this time. Is that right or wrong?
Yeah, I mean, you could be. I'm not. I would consider myself an expert in singularity, but I think it's going to occur probably in pockets, and then eventually things will coalesce, and it's going to be obvious that all the prominent AI systems have hit that stage. You also have the parallel phenomenon of quantum computing that is evolving as well, right? So quantum computing, we don't know if quantum computing and the AI technology will merge and or when, right? But they're kind of happening in parallel. And so quantum computing is, in theory, could do a couple of things, right? It could accelerate the ability for AI and AI algorithms to process information, certainly, but it also has another impact that people in my community are bracing for, which is the breaking of all of today's encryption.
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's coming.
So yeah, so we've got a lot to worry about in cyber, and just from the personal perspective, though, I mean, on AI, I do feel that everybody has kind of an obligation to understand this technology today, because it's not going anywhere. And it's got good and bad qualities. I can give you lots of examples on the medical side where it's been good, and I've seen that in my own family. But on the bad side, if we don't understand this technology, again, you can't teach your kids, you can't give them guidance, you don't understand necessarily that the bad guys who normally wrote phishing emails to you with misspellings and grammar issues can make an email look like they're your neighbor now, right?
Yes,
and they can do it at speed, and they can target you with spear phishing attacks and other things that look very real. This is AI, and on the cyber side, and we have to understand this stuff. I mean, it's
yeah. The quantum computing is really interesting, and I think with the new Willow chip, I believe Google developed, it's breaking all kinds of cryptography. So the idea that your Bitcoin is going to be safe, I don't know if that's going to be true. I mean, I think it'll eventually give it 5 seconds and it'll be able to break anything, or maybe a nanosecond, but until they figure out a way, because as I understand it, in order to get those bits of information to hit a quantum state where they can jump back and forth, it's got to be so cold, so if they can figure out how to do it without the temperature requirements so that I can have quantum computing in my hand, oof,
yeah,
that's going to be, oof.
Yeah, there's definitely some physics hurdles and some architecture hurdles with quantum computing. But I think the industry is going to rise to the challenge, and there's many groups out there that are developing post quantum cryptography. What that means is that they're developing cryptographic methods that will resist quantum computing, and it basically has to do with the length of the encryption keys, and so we'll get there. Obviously, the banking industry is going to have to be front and center in that, because all of your financial data is encrypted right now with today's algorithms. So, lot going on there.
It's a brave new world, Andrew. Please like and hit that share button, guys. Let's get a couple of comments here. Jason says, I'm still looking for a phase plasma rifle with a 20-watt range. Aren't we all? Which bleeds beautifully. And the guy says, I think I feel like with the modern technology today, it feels like Skynet is real. Definitely becoming real. No question about that. Cruz is on from Rhode Island. Good morning, brother. Johnny King says, AI is making lying cheaper, faster, and more convincing. And somebody like some low-level schmuck like me, but I have thousands of hours of me talking on the internet that's out there on YouTube and podcast form. It would be really easy to take my voice, right?
Yeah.
And my little speech idioms and stuff like that and create a very convincing. So when the phone rings and you're like, oh, it's Rich, and it's going to sound like me. No question about it.
Absolutely. So, and we're all tracking the development of deepfake. We call those deep fakes, right? So there's deepfake audio, deepfake video. And to my knowledge, we're not quite at the point where you can deepfake in real time. Mm-hmm. So that's a good thing. But it doesn't solve all the problems. And I think I might have mentioned this case last time, but there was an incident in, I think it was the Baltimore school district, where a disgruntled teacher had created an audio deepfake of the superintendent. And it took law enforcement and multiple forensic experts to determine that was a deepfake. But while that investigation was occurring, the superintendent was, it was like a 3-month stretch that individual was under investigation, and the public perception got to form that, hey, this person put this statement out there. And I think there was some racial connotations to it. But my point being is that it's not obvious up front that it's a deepfake, and we have to catch up to the detection and the investigation of deepfakes, right? It's still not instantaneous. So there's risks.
I'm looking over some of the things I definitely wanted to talk to you about, as far as like when you think of digital security practices, just the basic stuff. I mean, once again, we highly encourage you to go read through the things, but our Justin Carroll, for him, it's always passwords. Mm-hmm. The longer, the more complex, the better. And there are things out there with KeyPass and some other really great tools that can help you manage your passwords. But beyond something like that, is there anything that's like your go-to thing to kind of tighten down your cyber profile?
Yeah, a couple of things. So the first is non-technical, and that is mindset. And so you have to shift your mindset from reactionary to assume breach. So you should always assume that your accounts could be breached, and you should even assume that they are breached at this point in time. So you're always thinking that way, right? And then what you really want to do first is you want to focus on protecting your identity. And your identity basically is all your personal information and all things in combination that identify you. And so that includes things, all your personal information, right? And social security number, name, date of birth, all this kind of stuff. Now, can you stop that from getting stolen? Absolutely not. My information's been out there for years. But what you need to do is monitor your identity. That's key, because what the bad guys want from you 9.9 times out of 10 is money. All right. And in order to get money, they want to assume your identity, and they want to take loans out, and they want to, take credit cards out and do all this kind of stuff. So monitor your identity. And there's lots of good services out there. I use Experian today, but there's a bunch of them that, that do this kind of thing. So monitor your identity. The accounts, this is what Justin Carroll is talking about, protecting your accounts. And this is not just your bank accounts, but this is your Facebook account. This is your everything that has a login. Okay. if you are using a password, long and strong, and the only way you're going to remember that password, and you're not going to use the same password over and over and over again, is to have a password manager. These are easy, and your wife will love it. So, or your husband, whoever is sharing the responsibilities of bill paying with you. When you have a family password manager, all your credentials go into this one secure place, and your wife can access it, you can access it, and you don't have to remember 150, 200 passwords, right? You remember one, which is a secure way to log into that password manager. And then all of these managers connect and integrate with your browser, with your apps on your phone, all this kind of stuff. If you can go to passwordless, that's more secure. So this is where passkeys come in, and a lot of technology you'll see is passwordless today. And how do you know it's passwordless? Because the technology you're using is going to say, hey, do you want to use a passkey or something along those lines? So if you can do that, do that. And then the last thing I'll say about protecting accounts is multi-factor authentication. This is really, really, really important. It is the number one control that is going to prevent unauthorized access to your accounts when you use a password.
Mm-hmm.
What this does, Rich, is if I voluntarily give up my password because I was tricked, or somebody steals my password from another breach list because I've used the same password across all my accounts, they still can't log into my account if I've got multi-factor authentication, which is usually an app or a PIN code sent to your phone.
Mm-hmm.
So multi-factor is something you know, like a password, something you are, like a facial recognition or a fingerprint, or something you possess, like your phone.
Mm-hmm.
Two of those factors or more, and you're much harder to defeat.
Let me ask you a question because you just mentioned facial recognition. I've heard don't do that. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, it depends on where you sit, I guess, in the privacy spectrum. So I use facial recognition because it's convenient today. However, if I really wanted to protect against, say, government intrusion in my phone,
Mm-hmm.
facial recognition is easier to bypass, certainly with the right paperwork. But I'm not so concerned about that today. So, and I don't really personally have concerns about the privacy issues of facial recognition as it's used in the U.S. today. For me, it's a convenience thing, and it's strong, and it's a strong method. So I use it. But again, when you talk about privacy, there's even people in this group are going to be on the spectrum of I'm okay with sharing some information versus I don't want anybody to have any information about me. And
Mm-hmm.
wherever you are in that spectrum is how you have to design your plan. You just have to understand the trade-offs, you know?
Yeah. I saw it was a movie or something where the guy was, dead, and the cop walked up like, "Hey, sorry," and just put the phone toward their face, and now they're in your phone doing their thing. Uh, so I mean, if you knew where Rich Brown lived in 1975 and you knew the phone number to that, you would have the 10 digits unlocked by phone. Good
Yeah,
luck trying to figure out where I lived in 1975.
right.
But so it's something that I don't know. I've definitely gone down with Justin Carroll being one of my very best friends. I've obviously gone down the privacy and security rabbit hole, and it is deep and just getting deeper by the day.
Yeah,
But then I have to look and assess what is my threat profile, and some of the some of the measures that I were taking then were just cumbersome and clunky and really disruptive to how I live. And so I've kind of peeled some of those away. And anyway, I think you got to look at what is your threat. And for me, I'm probably just a general threat, just like every other American. Somebody's trying to fish and get me to, you know, give up my bank account or something like that.
absolutely. Yeah. And I think you mentioned the term threat, and we talk about threats a lot, especially in AWS, but in the cyber world, a threat is something that materializes when a threat actor exploits a vulnerability or weakness. So one way to think about your cyber self-defense, like you would think about your physical self-defense, is what are my weaknesses in my digital world, right? Plug the gaps. If your weakness is passwords and credentials, put MFA in place, right? If you're worried about losing your laptop, encrypt it, You know, if you're worried about your children getting exploited, that's a bit of a bigger process, but you're not going to tech your way out of that one. You've got to start early and build the value system and have that communication, you know, protocol in place. But these are, you know, the mindset approach to cyber self-defense is, you know, self-assessment. Like, what are my weaknesses? What do I don't know? So going back to, I think it was Chris's question, how do you learn? Well, you start by going to a resource, getting yourself educated on the basics, and then you ask yourself, okay, where are my gaps? Like, I don't understand this area. I don't understand how to encrypt my laptop. Okay, go learn, turn on BitLocker, turn on File Vault, right? You're done. So you can do the few basic things I have in that guide without being a technical person at all, and you can stop 99.9% of all threats for personal cyber self-defense.
Yeah, I love it. As far as like emerging threats, you know, we kind of talked about the 764. But what other things are you seeing on the horizon from where you sit, Andrew?
Yeah, I mean, so my focus primarily is on the corporate side, obviously defending financial institution, and our biggest challenges are speed of attack, you know, leveraged by AI. So we're fighting robots today. Every bank is fighting robots today. So, you know, and what I mean by that is when somebody gives up a credential, like a customer, or when they attempt to, you know, get into our systems and they have the right credential, it is less than a minute before that successful login occurs. So credentials compromised, less than a minute, attempted login occurs. That doesn't happen by a human being. Those are bots in the background that are executing those login protocols. Then what we see from there is once the successful login occurs, it's handed off to a human at that point in time to further exploit. So scale that, right? And now you're talking about thousands or tens of thousands of attempts through these botnets. And humans like me my team can't respond to that fast enough, right? So we also have to leverage the technology, very sophisticated tools to detect and immediately ring the alarm bells and or respond to that threat. So that is the changing landscape. It's speed of attack today in cyberspace.
That's a great point, man. You know, Will Wood and I, we talk economics on Monday, and it's always these trading algorithms are the same thing. You know, humans, you can't make trades that fast. And in these companies will pay millions and millions of dollars for a better algorithm to make them so that they can trade faster. They'll move their businesses closer so that the fiber optic moving through the thing is traveling at the speed of light, you know, and it's not even fast enough for them to exploit these things. So I imagine that's going to continue to get faster and harder. Johnny King asked a question, says, thoughts on a recent phone services outage? Is it cybersecurity attack or something else?
What I know about it is just what's in the public domain, and there's nothing really indicating a cyber attack at this point in time. The Verizon statement on it was, to me, it indicated it was probably some infrastructure issue, upgrade, patch, whatever. I don't think the information's out there yet necessarily, but I'm not leaning towards cyber attack on that one at this time.
What would a full on, and again, I know this is crazy speculative, but I'd be interested in your thoughts on it. What would a full on nation state actor peer cyber attack look like? And what do you think it would look like, Andrew?
Well, we have some great examples in Venezuela recently, and
Yes, we do.
and other places. So you can see we are the advanced persistent threat to other nation, right? So turn out the lights, shut down critical services, and it's used in a layered assault, right? So unlikely that if China was going to turn off the lights in the U.S., that would be all they do, right? I mean, that they're going to save that card for when they need to follow on with, you know, kinetic action, most likely, because they know what's going to happen if they just turn out the lights and they attack our critical infrastructure. We're going to respond in kind, right? So these are layered strategies, and that this is not something I'm making up. This was stated after the Venezuela
Hmm.
invasion, and our forces did an incredible job layering our skills, from cyber to space to sea, air, and land, and look at how it worked.
Oh, it's beautiful. This thing of beauty. I mean, all of a sudden the phones don't work. You ain't calling 911. All that's gone. And
Yeah,
the lights go out, and then you can come in and do what you want because you can't coordinate an attack. You can't coordinate a counter attack. And that's what scares me. If it did happen like that, I agree with you. It's not going to be a pinprick attack. It's going to be a layered attack in order for some kinetic to follow, I think. And I think
yeah,
that's what you're getting at, right?
absolutely. So let's talk about communication from a self-defense perspective, because this is one of the
Mhm.
hardest things to deal with. And I struggle with it because I've got children, in various parts of the country in college, right? So you have only a handful of options, and I'm not talking the ham radio option either. You know what I mean? Like, we all rely on these to communicate with family members, loved ones, friends, all this kind of stuff. And when they're a little bit too far away and it's going to take you a day of travel to get there, what are you going to do when the grid goes down or the cell network goes down? And you really only have a couple of options. I mean, you've got the modern versions of iPhone have a satellite capability built into it, but it uses a global star network. So there's gaps, right? You have things like the Garmin InReach that use the Iridium satellite network, much better coverage, but your cost goes up a little bit. You got device costs, and then you got subscription costs. So it comes down to your personal safety plan and how far you want to go in maintaining communication in the most likely scenarios. Is it likely that cell and satellite are all going to go down at the same time? Not possible, but not likely, right? Low probability, high impact event. So I would
Mhm.
lean on the side of having some satellite backup, texting capability if I was concerned about communicating with somebody that was really far away in that situation. But it's a hard problem to tackle.
It is an incredibly hard problem to tackle, which, again, if Tony is on, says, I'll bet ham radio still work. And Tony, if you have any thoughts on that and maybe you want to come on, we can talk about it. This is the one that I know I'm lacking on.
Mhm.
I know it right now. And Seekland and I talk about it all the time. It's like, man, damn, what would I do if I'm teaching a class here and you're over there? And, how do we coordinate and get our families together and, this and that? I'm like, it'd be bad. I just know it would be. And the limit for ham, maybe, and Tony, tell me if I'm wrong, is like, the repeaters, and having all those pre-programmed in and things of this nature. I don't know. I
Yeah,
struggle with it. Now, there are some things. Have you seen these they look like walkie-talkies, but I guess they use cell towers. Have you seen those?
I'm not that familiar with them. I think there's a couple of methods out there that can use hop Wi-Fi, but again, so if cells down, you're relying on the power grid still there to use that method, and I'm not super familiar with it, but
Yeah, but when the disaster happened in the mountains of Western North Carolina, we sent some teams over there to assist with that, and we had good success with Starlink. We
mhm,
bought some mobile Starlink things, and we had an Iridium phone. We had some other things. The
yep.
Iridium phone was not as reliable as I'd hoped it would be, but the Starlinks seemed to work pretty doggone well. Now, have you seen it? Have the Iranians been able to shut down Starlink?
That's what they're reporting, is that they've disrupted the Starlink signals. So
Mm.
yeah, there's a couple of sites out there that track communication activity in these hot zones, and Iran's basically turned off internet
Mm.
activity, and the reports recently suggest that they've disrupted Starlink. So that would be a first time event.
Yeah, I'm interested if that's just propaganda or if that's real.
Yeah.
Tony says UHF and VHF rely on repeaters. HF and something worldwide with a radio and a wire antenna. HF. Okay. Yeah, we may need to get you on here and talk that, Tony. If you're up for it, let me know. Because I've said for years I got to solve it, and
Yeah.
I continue to to put it on the back burner. I'm ashamed to admit it, but I got to admit it. I'm
Yeah, I
sorely
mean,
lacking.
it's an investment, which is the downside too. Like, there's no cheap way out of communication backups. That's
Mhm.
the hard part. And um, you got to also look at the most probable thing too, and
Yes. Yeah.
try to protect against that. And so, if you roll the clock all the way back to 9/11, if you had contacts in New York City, you couldn't reach them.
That's
The
right.
cell network was overloaded. Right now, as all the active duty law enforcement members in this group know, they prioritize law enforcement cell communications, which is great. But that just means that the rest of us might not get through on an emergency. So you got to have other ways to communicate, or at least a prearranged plan.
Yeah, this cyber disruption or EMP or any of these kind of worst case scenarios, I think it's going to create what I call, the tyranny of distance. Suddenly, my 15-20 minute trip to Walmart, that's 12 miles, just became, if I'm stuck there, that's a long hike, to get home. I mean, and you're going to be on the road with everybody, so the plan is carry cash. I'm going to go in, buy a bicycle in the dark or with my flashlight,
Yeah.
bring whatever bike I can find, a little pink girl's bike, and go. I'm driving home.
Smart. Yeah.
Will Parker says message to Garcia is secure communications. The unfortunately the lesson of message to Garcia from that book he's referencing is kind of like playing the telephone game. By the time the message comes back to you, we're going to meet at LZ Bluebird at 09 o'clock. It comes back to you. We're going to have blueberry pancakes next
Oh yeah.
Thursday. It's
Right.
like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Um, Before I let you go, man, I want to take the last 10 minutes or so and kind of let you riff, Andrew. What do people need to know? What do you like bang your head against the wall and go, man, why don't people know this? How can I help at least at a minimum, our community? Because you're talking to our community right now. It's going to go out as a podcast and thousands of people in our community are going to hear it.
Yeah.
What do you really want to leave them with?
Yeah. I want to leave them with the idea that this self defense community has a responsibility to learn some basic cyber, learn how to detect some basic attacks, because your parents or the elderly people in your life are getting phished all the time by phone and by email and by text. Your kids or the young people in your life are exposed to way more than we were when we were kids, way more. And they can't be expected to know it all out of the gate. We have a responsibility to sift through all the disinformation out there and give them, some guidance. Like, this is the community to do it, right? You already know, as self-defense practitioners, the concepts. You just have to reapply those concepts from physical defense to cyber. They're basically the same. The tools are different. That's it. And you can do some very basic stuff. Put antivirus on your computer and your phone, keep your stuff on auto update, use a strong password and multi-factor authentication. And if you want to, encrypt your device in case it gets stolen. Those are the basics, right? It's not rocket science. You just have to take action and do that. And also on the financial side, because most of it is financial oriented crime, stay on top of your bank accounts. Call your bank quickly if there's an issue, because their federal law requires banks to reimburse under certain circumstances, right? Under certain types of frauds. But you have to get this done, and you gotta contact them quickly. Also monitor yourself. We buy car insurance, we buy home insurance, pay for an identity monitoring service as insurance against your abuse of your identity. If you do those basic things, you're in the top 2%. That's it.
What do you
Um,
think about putting, like, I think Justin Carroll, he recommends putting a credit freeze
yep,
as a way to protect yourself from that.
100%. So there's credit freeze and there's credit lock. Credit freeze is protected by federal law. Credit
Mhm.
lock is a service that you have to purchase. Credit freeze is free, but you can also do this through the paid services. So freeze is good, especially if you're not in a time in life where you're taking out new credit frequently, right?
Mhm.
If it's far and few between, freeze your credit. This is great for elderly as well, because they're kind of past that window in their lives where they're leveraging their credit all the time, so they don't need to have it accessible by others. So put
And
it
you
on.
can unfreeze it if you need to buy a
Of course
truck
you
next week, right? It doesn't take that long to,
absolutely you can, yeah.
yeah.
So you should freeze it.
Yeah, I agree. Uh, you mentioned something.
So I'll offer this too. What do
Please.
you do? What do you do if you're attacked? What do you do if you feel like you've given up your credentials to somebody that you shouldn't have? What do you do if
Mm,
you've got you feel like your bank account is at risk? So or your Facebook account, right?
mhm,
So quickly log out of all your sessions and change your password. Okay,
mm.
so most of these services, aside from banking, but for all your other personal services, you can log in there, go into the settings, and force log out on all devices. Then change your password. Then implement MFA if it's not already implemented. That's going to force the bad guy out of the system. Change the password, which they don't know. Put MFA
MFA
in
being
place.
multi-factor identification, or what?
Multi-factor authentication. Yep.
Authentication.
On the banking side, if your credential's been compromised or you think it's been compromised, call the bank immediately. So in banking, we see this thousands of times a year where bad guys are standing up fraudulent replicas of bank websites.
Mhm.
Then they phish you by phone, by text message, and they get you to click on a link that looks just like your bank's website. What those are credential harvesters. They're designed to get you to input your username and password, and they'll follow that up with, "Hey, what's your one-time PIN?" And people give it to them all day long. All right. So the one thing you can do is learn how to recognize those attacks and don't ever put your credentials into anything when you're asked to do so via email and phone. You go right to the website, type in mybank.com, you don't
Mhm.
search for it, and that's where you put your credentials in. If you think they're compromised, you do what I said, which is force logout, change password, put MFA in place, call your bank. That's
Can
how
you
you
look at
respond.
a lot of times? Does the URL give it away from the
Um,
fraudulent one? Like, click this link, and you're
yeah,
looking at it. Goes, it's got a bunch of zeros and ones, and it doesn't say, my hometown bank anywhere. It's just, what
exactly.
is
Yeah.
this?
Yeah. So what you're talking about is the string of
Mhm,
information that we type or into a web browser or that we put in it, we click on. A
mhm.
lot of times the bad guys will masquerade those links using tiny URLs or something else. So, but you know that your bank wouldn't send you that link, right? That's the
Yeah.
key. And so you don't want to
I
click
saw
on.
one where everything was the same, Andrew, but they like misspelled world.
Mhm.
So it's, you can go buy that for 19.99 on GoDaddy
Yeah.
and say, my hometown, World Hometown Bank, and the world is misspelled slightly, and you just read it and go, okay, that looks, yeah, that's my bank.
Yeah. So this is very common, Rich. It's called typo squatting. And what they'll do is they'll flip a character in there. So an R and an N together looks like an M, right? So
Hmm.
to the unobserving individual, the bad guy will create this infrastructure in advance of the attack, and they'll either flip a character in the URL, or they'll use a combination of characters that look like something different, and they'll send it to you. And if you're not
Hmm.
paying attention, you're like, "Oh yeah, that's my bank, or that's my you know my other service," and you click on it, and then you'll give up your credentials, and then you're in this situation. So pay attention, self-awareness. Don't rush to do anything, right? But
Hmm.
if you can teach your parents something, it's because this is a common occurrence where they will Google the bank,
Yeah.
or they will Google their email service, and then they'll click on those search results, and those search results are fraudulent, right? So you want to train them to type the actual address in the URL, go to the authentic site, and enter it there. You'll cut way down on the mistakes.
Well, that's what Donald just gave us an example. It says, did you just order $384 of dog food from Chewy? If not, go to www.bankамerica.com to report the fraud.
Good one.
Not Bank of America, Bank America. Like, oh, yeah. And, I think my bank is getting better. And I'm imagining the financial institute that you lead is probably just as amazing. But yesterday, my wife and I decided we're going to go on an Alaskan cruise. So we go to book the cruise, and immediately it's like it looks suspicious. So like,
Yeah.
two-factor authentication. You sure this is you? You doing this thing? Yeah, we are. And then after that, I'm teaching a class with Mike next month in Florida. So now I'm buying a plane ticket, and it's doing the same. Hey, well, what are you? Let's two-factor authenticate that, Rich. What are you doing? And I love that.
Yeah.
It might be a minor inconvenience, but man, it gives me a lot of peace of mind, right?
Absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
one final thing before I let you go, this is a big concern for me, and I think that a lot of people don't take it seriously, and that is this idea that when you're in a public space and it's a Wi-Fi, I go to Starbucks or wherever the local coffee shop, Grinder House, and I see Grinder House has a free Wi-Fi.
Mhm.
Okay, well, I'm going to jump on there while my wife is ordering and do some banking or whatever. I've heard and read that is a big danger. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so there's a couple of problems with that. First is a man in the middle attack. So that the Wi-Fi access point that you think you're connecting to might actually be a bad guy in the middle of that, capturing all your communication. Secondly, and this is where the confusion occurs between that little lock icon you see in your browser and the VPN service that you're not sure you need. All right.
Mhm.
So when you have that little lock icon in your browser, that means that that browser communication to that website, even on open Wi-Fi, is encrypted. All right. That doesn't mean it's safe. Bad guys can take out encryption certificates as well. So when you
Mhm.
layer a VPN into that equation on open Wi-Fi, it encrypts all the communication from your laptop or your phone to whatever site you go to, not just that one particular site. So you eliminate leakage there, from if you're encrypted from your device through that open Wi-Fi, the bad guy can't get in the middle of that communication and do anything. So I personally use VPN on my phone, and I use it on my laptop. Um,
Use Proton, or what do you use,
I
Andrew?
use the Proton suite.
Yeah.
I like their open source, and they're highly secure. There's a bunch of options out there, but that's I've used it for years, and I started using it after being involved in a ransomware response case, and the bad guys were using it,
Uh,
because you can't track the identity of anybody who's using Proton Mail. So I started digging into it then, and then it's gotten much more popular since then.
what do you think about Signal, the messaging app? It got a lot of attention
Yeah.
last year when Secretary Warren Hegseth there
Mhm.
was a breach on that, or not necessarily a breach per se, but what are your thoughts on Signal or other encrypted messaging apps?
Yeah, I mean, I use Signal for some communications. It's the Signal Technology Foundation, I think it is, owns it, and the governance happens by a subsidiary. It is open source, which is good because open source means the code is reviewed by the community. The security community can see it and validate it. The Signal protocol that does all the encryption is actually used under the hood by Facebook Messenger, and I think Google uses it as well. So it's a very well known, reliable protocol. There's others out there. I don't have any concerns with Signal. The mishap that we all saw with Ambassador Waltz back when that happened, that wasn't a Signal failure. That was a
Exactly.
human failure
Yeah.
there. And
Human is always the weakest link in these
that's
things,
the
right?
weakest link, yeah. And so I don't have any issues with it, personally.
Is there something that you like better than Signal?
I mean, I can't say that I've researched like Threema or anything else. I mean, I use, even though it's a Meta product, I do use WhatsApp Messenger to communicate with some folks overseas, just because it's very popular internationally,
Hmm.
and it is encrypted end to end. But Signal I'll use to communicate with family and friends for certain conversations, not everything. And then, if you're using iPhone to iPhone, that's encrypted end to end. If you're doing like iPhone to Google or to Android, that's not encrypted. So those are things
Hmm.
you need to understand. And we talked about the telecommunication breaches last time, and those are the communications that are exposed, right, when they're not encrypted. So yeah, Signal, Proton, I'm a fan of both. So.
Yeah. We said we'd take about an hour. We're an hour and 5 minutes in, so I want to be
Right.
definitely respectful of your time. This is part two of a multi-part series with Andrew. So if you enjoyed this content, don't worry, we'll have him on here again here in a month or so. Andrew, final thoughts. Where can people find you? Where can they study more about this stuff?
I'm pretty much only on LinkedIn, Rich. Facebook only to be on the AWS, so you can reach out to me there, and happy to help you. Check out that guide we published last time. It'll get you up to speed quickly on things, and just read the news. Get familiar with what's going on, and that's from a layperson's perspective. That's all you need to do to get started.
Yeah, this stuff isn't going away, guys. We got to lean into it as a community, keep our families safe. Johnny King's is a very informative show. Thanks for the information. Bruce's thanks for another great show. And thank you, Andrew, for being on, man, and being part of our community and giving your time and your resources so generously. Thank you so much, sir.
You're very welcome.
Guys and gals out there in Warrior Nation, remember the fight is coming. You better get your cyber house in order. Have a good one, guys, and be safe.